Welcome aboard the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast, where we're dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun, because life truly is better on a boat. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit, packed with inspection checklists, questions to ask private sellers and dealers, ownership calculators, how to sea trial a boat the right way, and much more. And it's all yours free at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit. And the magic money saving method, the insider's way to getting the best deal on your new or used boat. Check out the video at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save. Now, let's hop aboard and have some fun. Welcome aboard the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast. I am your host, Captain Matt, where we're dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun, because life truly is better on a boat. Today's podcast is sponsored by BoatBuyersSecretWeapon.com, where at the website you can actually get a boat buyer's toolkit that will help you go through the process of selecting the right boat, demoing the boat the right way. And there's also opportunity to get your hands on the best negotiation technique and strategy to ensure that you don't overpay for your boat. So you can go get that at BoatBuyersSecretWeapon.com. Let's get into today's topic. Pontoons versus TriToons. There's a lot of discussion in the pontoon market, and one of the first decisions that somebody needs to make is, what is right for us, a pontoon or a tri-toon? So what we want to do is go through the differences, talk about some of the decisions that you need to make, and talk about some of the, as you're looking at a pontoon, some of the things that you need to consider, okay? So let's first start with a very simple definition. Pontoons and tri-toons. On the left, you'll see a pontoon. There's two tubes, two of those aluminum tubes, one on each side of the boat. It's a very stable platform. And the one on the right, you can see three tubes. Now, the reason I picked these pictures is they were copyright free on the internet, first of all, but they showed the difference. So, a couple things that I want to talk about on the tri-toon compared to the pontoon. One, there's more buoyancy on a tri-toon. You've got 1/3 extra buoyancy, right? So you've got 1/3 more buoyancy than you do on the pontoon because you've got that extra tube of flotation in the middle. We'll talk about some different ways different manufacturers utilize that middle tube to get different performance characteristics, but you can see, look at how high up in the water that tri-toon is. Even though it's in that turn, you can see it banking a little bit. Look at how low that pontoon is in the water. There's 6 people on the boat. They look to be pretty small individuals, but even that little bit of weight is sinking that boat down in the water just a little bit because it doesn't have as much flotation. Now, imagine if you were to put 8 to 10 full-size adults on that boat, how much more it would sink that down in the water because of the weight, right? The bigger the engine, the more gear, the heavier your cooler, the more fuel you have in the boat. All of that is going to sink the boat lower in the water. Now, if you are looking to get speed out of your boat, well, what happens? You're going to need a bigger horsepower because that boat is plowing through the water more with more weight on the boat. So one thing you want to consider, pontoon versus tri-toon, is how many people are we going to put on the boat? How much buoyancy do we need? How fast do we want to go when those people are on the boat? And we'll get into horsepower next, but you want to think about, okay, if we're going to have 6, 8 full-size adults that are, I'm over 200 pounds, and most of my friends and family are bigger people, well, guess what? That extra buoyancy means I'm going to need a bigger horsepower engine to get the same speeds that somebody that was just going to take 2 people out would need, okay? The next is, it kind of is demonstrated in this photo, the maneuverability. If you look how that pontoon on the right, the blue one, it kind of banks. What that allows the pontoons to do is to make sharp, easier turns. If you're maneuvering around a dock, if you are maneuvering in the water, you gotta turn around to pick up a fallen skier or somebody on the tube, or you want that more sports car feeling compared to the school bus feeling of a pontoon. Well, that tri-toon gives you additional maneuverability because you can bank. They do some different things where they build the boats to make them more maneuverable as well. But if you think of that pontoon, you've got to get both of those tunes to make a turn, and they don't turn as sharp. Now, I'm not saying they're difficult to drive. I'm not saying that they don't maneuver well around the docks. I'm just saying that the pontoon is more maneuverable. So if you're looking for that maneuverability, if you're going to do a lot of water sports, I would say look towards the tri-toon. If you say, you know what, we're just going to go out for some sunset cruises, for some booze cruises, we're going to go out and do some fishing. Our lake's not that big. We have a horsepower restriction on our lake anyway. We're typically going out on smooth days. Then the pontoon is a great fit because you're saving some significant money by, that third tune is anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 for that tri-toon option in a general ballpark. Okay, the next thing that you're gonna gain with the tri-toon is you're gonna gain more structural stability. Not only do you have a third more flotation and buoyancy, but you also have an extra structural support beam running right down the center of the boat, supporting the deck, supporting it from waves. It handles better in rough water because you're higher up on the water. You kind of skip across the top of the waves, where sometimes on a pontoon you'll kind of chug through them, especially if you have a lot of weight in the boat. The additional structural support also allows the manufacturer to safely put a heavier, bigger horsepower engine that's going to put more torque and more stress on the structure of the boat. So again, it goes back to speed and performance. If you want speed and performance out of your pontoon, you need to lean towards the tri-toon option. And that leads us right into the horsepower. This is just a general, very generic, not manufacturer specific. Manufacturers do certain things to get more performance out of their boats with smaller horsepower, but this will give you a general idea. So a pontoon, I'm going to recommend to somebody that's just looking for slow cruising. They're on a small body of water. It doesn't get very rough. They could care less. They're not in a hurry to get anywhere. They're not going to go that far from home. They want to be as economical as they can with their purchase. Great. A 18, 20, 22, maybe even a 24-foot pontoon with a 50 horsepower motor is going to go 15, maybe 18 miles an hour. You can do a slow cruise. Okay. You step up to the 90 horsepower, and you can kind of gauge in between with the 60s and the 70s, the 75s, the 90. The 90 is going to bump you up a little bit. Maybe you're in the 20 to low 20 miles an hour with a couple people on the boat, pretty light gear. You can do some slow tubing with the kids. I pulled my little kids, my young girls, behind a pontoon with the 90. They had a blast. It doesn't go super fast. But it's fun. They get out there and they can tube. Maybe even if they're real little, they can do skiing on two or even some wakeboarding at that speed. Now you bump up to the 115 horsepower. Now you're going to get maybe mid 20s, maybe into the 30 mile an hour range. Maybe with the options, maybe you can get up just above 30. And you can get the kids skiing, some grown kids that are skiing on two or wakeboarding or tubing, and you're going to have a little bit more speed with that 115. Now, here's a key jump. The 115 to the 150 horsepower engine is the additional buoyancy that you get, the additional structural support that you get allows you to go to the 150 horsepower. Now, here's what I'll tell you. If you're on the brink, if you're not sure, putting 150 horsepower on a double tune, a regular pontoon, you're not going to get the full performance value out of that engine. You're going to do more than a 115, but you're not going to get the same level of performance as if you put that 150 horsepower on a tri-toon. Because of that additional buoyancy, you're going to skip across the water more, and that 150 horsepower is going to deliver significantly better performance. So you're going to be high 30s to low 40s. You can ski with adults. Like I said, I'm over 200 pounds, and I've slalom skied behind a 22 or 24 foot tri-toon with the 150. I got up pretty easily. I was able to cut back and forth. I had a great time. So that's going to be, if you're looking to do more water sports, that's going to be for adults and larger kids. That's kind of going to be your minimum level. I also like the fact that it's going to turn sharper. The maneuverability tends to be better on the tri-toons as far as making quick turns to get back to a fallen skier. And to me, that's important, especially when I have my young girls in the water. The next step up is going to be the 225 horsepower, again, on a tri-toon. You're not going to be able to put that size engine on a pontoon right now. Why would you go up to the 225? Well, you want speed, and you've got lots of people on the boat. So you want to be running that on a 23, 25-foot pontoon. That's going to run in the mid 40s to maybe even to the low 50s, depending on the options, depending on the weight on your boat. So if you're going to put 8 people on your boat and you still want to run at 35 miles an hour, well, you probably want to step up to that 225, or you just like the speed. That's going to be where you want to go. Moving up to the 300 and the 425 that Yamaha now has, hey, that's going to make you as fast as almost any other boat on the water, and likely faster, okay? So that's going to put you in the high 40s, maybe mid 50s. Maybe even more than that. There are some single-engine pontoons that will run close to 60 miles an hour as you get up into the 300, 425 horsepower range. And then there's also twin horsepower options, which, again, are going to be on a tri-toon because of that flotation, that buoyancy, to get the weight of the engines and to allow the performance to kick in. And why would you go with that? Well, you want to look like a badass on the water. You want to be one of the few twin-engine pontoons on your body of water, and that's the direction you want to go. And I'm telling you, they're awesome. They are fantastic. They're amazing. Okay, so that gives you a look on the horsepower that you're looking to go. Now, whether it's a pontoon or whether it's a tri-toon, there's some other things you need to understand. And the first is the pontoon sizes. Now, this is a diagram just to give you, there's no pontoon that looks like this in the world. I hope this would be a very dangerous and uncomfortable boat. But you can get the idea that the size or the diameter of the pontoon, how big around the tube is going to impact on the buoyancy. So there's a couple, I'll say standard sizes, but even that's not really true anymore. But 23 inch diameter, 25 inch diameter, and 27 inch diameter. There's a couple manufacturers that are using 32 inch diameter pontoons on the center tube, and we'll talk about some different things that the tri-toons are doing on the center tube. But what you understand is on some of the pontoons, they are cutting costs and saving money by using a smaller diameter tube. Now, you may not even realize it unless you look from one to the other. You may not notice that a 23 versus a 25 diameter pontoon. But why that's important is your buoyancy goes down significantly. You can see it in this diagram that, the small pontoon is going to float at that level. If you put a bigger pontoon on, it's going to give you more buoyancy, which allows you to get more weight on the boat, to get better performance out of the engine that you have. You move up to the bigger size even, let's say a 27-inch tube, and again, that's additional flotation, additional buoyancy, better performance out of the horsepower that you do choose. Now, there's, like I said, 23, 25, 27. Most pontoons and tri-toons, kind of the standard setup is going to be a 25-inch tube. So I want you to consider that. The weight that you're putting on, don't buy a 23-inch pontoon, especially if you're going pre-owned. Some of the older ones, it's much more common. They hadn't discovered this yet. It wasn't important yet, so they're only making the smaller tubes. So just know what size the tube is and understand that if you are going to put a lot of weight on it, you don't want to go too small, okay? Now, another thing in the construction, I just want you to understand how a pontoon is built, okay? So the pontoons are kind of have a three-step build process. First, you have the pontoons and the brackets, okay? The pontoons and the brackets, and then you have bracing. Think of it like the floor joists in your house, the bracing that goes across, and then on top of that bracing goes the plywood, the flooring, whether it's carpet, whether it's the vinyl, or maybe it's the sea deck, or maybe it's the seagrass, and then a finishing piece around that. Okay, so that's how it's constructed. We've already talked about the size of the pontoons. Make sure that's the size that's appropriate. The other thing that manufacturers do to either make their boat more sturdy and solid or to cut costs is they space those floor joists or those brackets further apart. So they may be 18 inches, they may be 24 inches. And what that does is if it's further apart, let's say 24 versus 18, well, what does that tell you? That tells you that the boat's not going to be as sturdy, not going to be as solid. Which if you're putting a 50 horsepower on it or even a 90 and your lake or your body of water that you boat on isn't too rough, well, that's totally fine. But what I want you to understand is as you put more horsepower, you're going faster speeds, you're putting more weight on the boat, you're operating in rougher conditions, that extra sturdiness of the boat's foundation is going to make that boat last longer and be more sturdy 5-10 years down the road. So if that investment is a long-term investment that you're making, you're operating in a rough area, you're going to be going 30-40 miles an hour, you're going to be doing water sports, you're going to be putting a lot of weight on the boat, then I'm going to recommend you get those spacing that is tighter together. If you're on a smaller body of water or a budget's of a concern and you say, you know what, I'm okay saving the money to get this particular pontoon, and I'll do the 24-inch on center bracings. So I just want you to be aware that that's how it's done. Every manufacturer does a little bit different. Some use thicker aluminum support structures. Some use thinner. Again, when you're shopping, I just want you to be aware of this and ask those questions. Is how far are the joists apart? How far are those beams apart? And let me see how thick they are. And they should know a good person, especially if you're shopping new, will know that. If you're looking used, what you want to do is you want to crawl under, or you want to go online and look at that model, 5 years ago and try to determine what they were doing and just do some research. Great thing about if you're going used is you can go on some forums and you can ask people that have had those boats in the past how they feel about them, and you'll get a pretty honest reaction that can tell you, was this a value boat that was designed to save money and hit a price point, or is it a more premium, higher quality boat that was designed to be stronger for a lifetime, and then you're going to have a higher investment, and you have to decide what's most important, okay? So as we look at tri-toons specifically, you will find several different ways that manufacturers construct their tri-toons for different reasons. So if you look at the top image, on the left, there are 3 tubes that are the same size, same shape. Sometimes you'll see a manufacturer, they'll even set that center tube down an inch or two to give, remember that banking from the first picture, it's kind of starts that bank out a little bit, and it'll allow even more maneuverability in the turns. The second is the middle tune is an oval. So it's a bigger tube, a bigger diameter, and it's an oval shape to give more surface area on the water, and that is another method that you'll see. The other method that you'll see is kind of that U-shaped center tune, where again you have more surface area to give that boat more buoyancy. It changes the performance characteristics a little bit. And then the bottom one, you'll see where the center tune is larger and set down more. So again, that's going to give you even more bank. Now, I can't tell you which one is right or which one is wrong, which one is better. Here's what I will tell you is ask the manufacturer or ask the dealer the reason why they do it, and then run the boat. That's going to be the best way to tell if, hey, I like this. I'll tell you, none of them are bad. I wouldn't say, hey, stay away from this. But what I will tell you is run the boat, do some turns, follow the checklist on how to demo a boat the right way for your sea trial so you know exactly what you're getting into. I remember my family's second boat. My dad didn't do a test drive, and what he found was the way the boat maneuvered in the water, he didn't like it. It was, I'd say, somewhat dangerous. It banked up really high in the turns on the lakes that we ran on, and it was something that was always a point of disappointment, was always an issue, so much so that my mom didn't like riding in the boat. So what I'll tell you is, take the boat, before you make the final decision and write the final check, take that particular boat out on the water, understand why they built it the way they did, and then operate the boat using the checklist, the demo checklist, to ensure that you're happy with the ride characteristics. How does it handle rough, choppy water? How does it do in turns? How does it do maneuvering around the dock? Each one has pluses, each one has minuses, and it'll be your own personal preference as to which one makes the most sense for you. But there's not one that I would say, this is the right way. They're just different ways to accomplish a little bit different ride characteristics. More performance, more stability, more speed, more maneuverability, and there's trade-offs on each of them. So ask those questions so that you can determine what's right for you. Now, the next thing that I want to share with you as it relates to the tri-toons is there's two different types of tri-toons that you'll find. They're going to be called, everybody's going to refer to them as tri-toons or triple tubes, but there's one that's called a sport tube, and the sport tube is the one on the left. And you'll notice that pontoon, that middle pontoon, doesn't flow all the way back to the motor pod. You'll see it cuts off short, and then you have the motor pod, which typically doesn't have much, or if any, flotation in it, and it's above the water. So you're getting that extra structural support on the front, maybe 2/3 of the boat, but you're not getting it all the way through. So you're also losing that buoyancy. Not a bad thing necessarily, because it saves some money. It allows you to get the performance, the additional buoyancy of a tri-toon, but cut your investment down a little bit. On the right side, you'll notice it's a full triple tube. That middle tube goes all the way from the front, all the way to the back, and the motor pod is kind of built into that tube the way they do it. The motor pod and the middle tube are typically welded together or are fixed together in some way or another. That's going to give you that full structural support. That's going to give you the additional buoyancy all the way through. The more horsepower you're putting on the boat, over a 225 and above, I'm going to say, hey, you probably are going to want to go with the triple tube. And you'll even notice some of the horsepower ratings on the sport tubes only will allow up to a 150. They're not taking those up to the 225 in some cases, and in most cases actually right now. They may change that in the future as they adjust the other stability. But remember how we talked about in the construction. You've got the tubes, you've got the bracing, you've got your decking. Well, the less sturdy the construction is, the further apart the bracings are, the shorter that center tube, the less durability, the less rugged that structure, the foundation is, the less horsepower it's going to be able to handle, and the more stress the boat will be under. So pay attention. If you see a boat that is $2,000-$3,000 less than the other one that looks comparable, you may ask yourself, does it have the sport tube or does it have the center tube? And make sure that you know what you're buying. The stern drive versus outboard, I do have some recommendations here. If you'll notice, excuse me, on the left is the stern drive. The engine is inside the boat, typically kind of set down in the pontoon. The stern drive, or the lower unit, or the outboard portion, is the little black thing with the silver prop on it, and that is called a stern drive pontoon, an inboard outboard pontoon, or an IO pontoon. All those are synonymous. Advantages is it gives you easy access to the water. You can see there's no big outboard hanging in the way that's going to obstruct your access to the water. When you're going, that motor trims down and it is tucked up under, so it's not sticking out. If you're at the sandbar, if the kids are doing a lot of jumping off the back, it's a great option. On the right is the outboard version. You can see you've got that big Mercury hanging off the back. Now, what I'll tell you is my recommendation is to stick to the outboard. Unless you absolutely positively have to have that easy access to the water, you're likely going to be happier with the outboard. Those engines are quieter. They're more efficient. They're easier to maintain. They're easier to winterize and to still utilize your boat in the wintertime because of the way they drain. You can trim that motor all the way up out of the water. You don't have to worry about corrosion as much. On the left side, stern drives. I love stern drive fiberglass boats, but on a pontoon, they're much more difficult to work with because they're kind of enclosed in the aluminum tube, and they're more difficult to work on. They're typically will have more vibrations, especially over time. You can't tilt that engine up out of the water, so you have more corrosion issues if you leave the boat in the water. And they're significantly heavier, reducing some of the performance of the boat. And all of that will lead me to recommend, hey, stick to the outboards in most applications. Now, again, if getting access to the water is important to you, it is a nice big swim platform back there, which is great. But traditionally, the outboard is going to have higher resale and be a better fit for most boaters, okay? Just wanted to touch on that. And as always, to ensure your best price, if you're ready to make the buying decision, you want to make sure that you get the absolute best price, you can go to boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save for a special opportunity. All of this information we provide for free so that everybody has access to it that's looking to make a decision. Should we buy a boat? And if so, what boat should we buy? And how do we make sure we buy the right boat? We have resources available at Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon that allow you to support this podcast, this video series that hopefully has been incredibly valuable to you. And to avoid charging for this information, we offer this special Boat Buyer's Toolkit. And one of the components is a negotiation strategy that will ensure you get the lowest price, will likely save you hundreds, thousands, and maybe even tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the type of boat that you're looking to buy. So you can check that out there. There's also some other ways to support the podcast by getting a quote for insurance. We have vetted these companies to make sure they provide great insurance and at good rates. So you can check them to see if you're going to get the best overall coverage at the cheapest investment amount. There's also some financing opportunities where you can request financing, get a quote on a boat loan, and compare that to your local credit union, to the dealer if you're working with the dealer, and make the decision that is most economically sound for you. And we're always are looking for other sources like that, again, to help support the podcast, but also to support you as the boating community to find the resources that are going to be of most value and make sure that you have a great time on the water. So you can go to boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save to get started. And until next time, remember, life is better on a boat. Take care, everybody.
It's time to pull up the anchor and run this podcast back to the dock. We'll be back again with another helpful and fun episode. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, visit us at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/guest, and I'll help offer insights into your boat research and shopping experience. We'd also appreciate it if you gave the podcast a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so we know how we're doing. It also helps others find us, which is a big help. You can also share with your boating friends and boating groups on social media. They'll certainly thank you. By the way, if you haven't already, be sure to grab your free Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit with inspection checklists, questions to ask, calculators, how to sea trial a boat the right way, and much, much more. You can pick up your copy at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit today. Already found the perfect boat and want to ensure you don't pay too much? Check out the magic money-saving method at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/save for a short video. And now a few first-time boating tips for when you bought your new boat. Number 1, at the boat ramp, prepare your boat, your gear, your guests in the staging area. Then head back down the ramp, unload, and head to the parking lot. Be courteous to your fellow boaters and don't tie that ramp up unnecessarily with things that should be done in the staging area. It'll make you a lot more boating friends. Number 2, this could save you an expensive ticket, and it's a personal pet peeve of mine. Boats do not have headlights. They have docking lights. They're specifically made for seeing in tight quarters and docking. Please, 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 please do not run your docking lights while running down the lake or the waterway. It will cause other boaters night blindness, and it can be very dangerous, and it's incredibly rude to those other boaters. Plus, as I said, it can land you with a very, very expensive ticket. Number 3, pay attention to your wake at all times. When maneuvering at slow speeds, you can put out an enormous wake. Be sure to be at idle speed, which is just in forward gear, to ensure there's no wake, no extra throttle. Again, this can save you a very expensive ticket, and it's courteous to your fellow boaters. Number 4, follow the maintenance schedule for your boat, changing the oil, the impeller, the gear loop, winterizing before the first major freeze if you freeze in your area, and checking your tires and your hubs and keeping those bearings greased. It will help you ensure that you don't experience an expensive and an unnecessary repair. Keeping up with that general maintenance will ensure that you have a much more fun and enjoyable boating lifestyle and have fewer problems that arise. Number 5, always double check your plug is in, that your battery is charged, and the fuel is full before heading out for a day on the water. Now, I know all of these from personal experience, and it's ruined the boating day every single time. So double check those things before you head out on the water, before you back down that ramp and go, and you'll have much more fun. And most important, have fun. Get out and enjoy your boat as often as you can, because as you know, life truly is better on a boat. Until next time, this is your friend in boating, Captain Matt.